All right, lock in. Conference League has buttoned up, and it's high time that I talk about it because I missed, with my travels, I missed the last episode of the Conference League stuff. So a lot has changed because a lot of people are confused by the Conference League every year. I'm going to pretend this has been going on since the beginning of time when really the Conference League is younger than just about everything. The Conference League's very young. They only play 6 matches. I don't know why. Maybe they're trying to cut down on travel costs for some of these teams. Maybe, who knows, right? Because a lot of the teams involved in this, whether it be Hamrun, Shelburne, Breidablik, right? Looking at the standings, these are not teams that are sitting on top of millions of dollars. The travel dent to get to these matches is significant. I'd imagine they'd probably get more money back, though, from having another home match, from playing 2 more matches, the TV money that you would get from that. I don't know. But they've just decided that the way to do it is to play only 6 matches. That means that every match matters like 25% more, right? Because if you're looking at Champions League, you're looking at Europa League, they're playing 8 matches. They play each pot 2 times, right? Different pots, different setup in the Conference League, so only 6 matches. So there's big swings that can happen. I mean, the difference between being out entirely at the end is 7 points to 12 points. I mean, will get you into the top 8. Right, so this team, 11 points here. The last team that didn't get into the top 8 is only 4 points safe, right? So these last 2 matches carry basically all of the possible importance. And this was the second to last match day where we ended up with some particularly important results that I'm going to point out in a moment, because there's crazy drama that happened on the final day, like very, very late, very painful drama. Sparta Prague pulled off a 2-0 win with an 89th minute goal for Sparta Prague to be able to put them in front against Univ Craiova. Now, at certain points in this qualifying, Univ Craiova was certainly top 8. It felt like they were, they'd put together some good results up to this point. Now, this result for Sparta Prague, this is something that put them well on their way to finishing in the top 8. They beat Aberdeen 3-0. Decent looking Czech side this year, right? Aberdeen, they were terrible. All right, they bricked all the way down here with a couple of losses towards the end against Strasbourg and Sparta Prague, which is couple of difficult draws for them. When you only have 6 matches, every draw that you have, every team that you're playing is going to be more important as well. So that's a tough result, but a big goal at the time for Sparta Prague. They're sitting pretty in the top 8, and that's where Univ Craiova thought they might be able to be. There was also Skandia pulling off a 2-0 win over Slovan Bratislava. This is the type of result that, hey, might be able to put an Albanian team in the knockouts, right? We're looking forward to that sort of stuff. Maybe there could potentially be a chance. There wasn't a chance, however, for Legia Warsaw going into the final day. They lost on the road against Armenian side Noah's Ark here, with a second half comeback with the winning goal in the 84th minute for Noah. That puts them in a comfortable position that Legia Warsaw did not have. Now, Legia Warsaw would finish with a win in their final match against Lincoln Red Imps, and that was a very important match. We're going to get into that and what happened there on the final day. But where the hell's the other team? Please. Noah, on the virtue of this win, managed to play its way into the knockouts. They're headed to the playoff. They lost their last match to Dynamo Kyiv on the final match day, but with 8 points, that was good enough. That, in fact, wasn't even the line of decision on the final day. Vallecano with a nice win, draw for BK Häcken and Ike Larnaca, who've both been competitive through this cycle. A win for Fiorentina, which I just am going to point this out. I think it's incredibly funny because Fiorentina's been in Europe, obviously, a couple straight years. They're having a diabolical season in Serie A. They're in last, and they're not even close. They have 6 draws and 9 losses from their first 15 matches in the league. So we are talking about a team that, even though they are competing in Europe, they suck. They are ass. They are steaming hot piles of ass. Okay, they're not even in the same neighborhood of a good team, and yet they keep finding ways to get results in this competition, right? And any team in Serie A, I think, would be able to make the knockouts in this competition. Fiorentina doing exactly that, right? They won half of their matches. They lost the final match to Lausanne Sport, but Fiorentina, who've gotten so close to winning this competition multiple times already, will be in the knockouts again. And you really do not want to catch this team. They are also in the 9 through 16 category, which means they are a seeded team for the playoff round by virtue of their goal difference. So congratulations to them. I'm sure that was something they were really sweating. A couple of results that ended up not mattering much. Rapid Vienna continued to be the worst team in the competition, losing at home against a something from the periodic table. Crystal Palace picked up the win against Shelburne that it needed. Rijeka beat Celje. This was kind of heartbreaking for Celje. They had a chance to get the top 8, but they dropped 1 point in their final 2 matches. They even failed to beat Shelburne. If they had managed to score against Shelburne, they still wouldn't have got in there. In fact, Ike Larnaca, with a win against Skandia in their final match day, grabbed the last spot. This is very, very impressive, very important for Ike Larnaca. We haven't really looked at the matches from the last day yet, but 83rd minute goal, and we've got a team from Cyprus that's got a bye in the first round of the knockouts in the Conference League. Big deal for them. They went in an absolute rip. They didn't lose a match, actually. They are one of just 3 teams in the entire competition that has not lost yet. So that's obviously great for them, that draw against BK Häcken. Häcken, on the other hand, they ended up with 3 draws. They could not find a way to win matches. They were like the inverse of Ike Larnaca. They ended up out. Final match day, they actually didn't have a chance because of that draw, and they lost to Slovan Bratislava in the Depression Bowl because neither of those teams actually had a chance. Rakov beat Zrinski. That was a nice result for them. That set up Rakov with a chance to be very firmly top 8 in the final day. And then there's this funny little result where Lincoln Red Imps of Gibraltar won at home with, an own goal, and they squeaked it by Sigma Olomouc. Now, obviously, Sigma Olomouc's going to be better than them, right? Basically, anybody's going to be better than Lincoln Red Imps, especially a team that can qualify out of the Czech Republic to play in Europe, right? We're not talking about a team from the Northern Irish League here that has shithoused their way to this round. This result put Lincoln Red Imps on 7 points. They also managed to beat Lech Poznan somehow, so they had 7 points going into the final match day. 7 points from 5 matches. Understandably, this puts Lincoln Red Imps in the position of potentially being the first Gibraltarian club to ever make a European knockout. Fucking obviously, right? Like, it's insane that they're even here at this level. It's insane that they've picked up 2 wins, which is no doubt going to fund their club for a long time because you get a nice big check for winning a match in these competitions. They've won 2, 7 points, and they're going to be racing for it on the final day. Like, they are going to be in the races. The same Lech Poznan team, by the way, that ended up drawing Mainz on the second to last match day. KUPS and Lausanne Sport both ended up in a draw that was going to put them both on the line. Lausanne Sport for a chance to get into the top 8, and KUPS for a chance to get in the playoff. Shakhtar Donetsk beat Hamrun, and Aberdeen's loss to Strasbourg buried any chance they thought that they might have. Bringing us to the final set of matches. Don't worry, I will explain the insanity and the importance. You already know about Ike Larnaca pulling this off, but what you probably didn't notice is that Skandia, despite the loss in the final match day, squeaked it in with 7 points and a -1 goal difference. The Albanians are going to the playoff with 2 wins, a draw, and 3 losses from 6 matches. That win against Slovan Bratislava made all the difference. If Slovan Bratislava had won that match, they would have been sitting on 9 points and they would have gone through comfortably. It's the Albanian club Skandia that's crept in. Anytime you're getting like 17 to 24 in the Conference League, you're getting some pretty wild teams that are managing to battle their way in. That was a great result for them. AZ Alkmaar and Jagiellonia, 2 of the better teams in this competition. Jagiellonia showed their chops in Europe last year. They've gotten back into the knockouts this year, but they do not seem to be firing on all cylinders. Hugely disappointing result here, because if AZ had won, they had a chance, obviously, to get top 8. They drew, so AZ is actually going to the playoff round, which has got to be a massive disappointment for them. Celje with a draw against Shelburne. Shelburne out Celje in the playoff. Then we begin the weirdness. I'm going to save this for later. Let me knock the other matches out, and then I'll include this Crystal Palace match, because yes, they did not win, and yes, that's insane that they did not win. Dynamo Kyiv beat Noah 2-0 in the final match day. You already know Noah is through. Dynamo Kyiv, they got a really difficult draw, they had Samsunspor, they had Fiorentina. It was not the easiest draw. They ended on 6 points, and the Ukrainians are unfortunately out, despite the fact that they are clearly better than some of the teams that have gone into the playoff. They just didn't get the results when they needed them to be able to cash in. Fiorentina lost their final match to Lausanne Sport. That sent Fiorentina spiraling down to 15th again. If they'd won, they had a chance. The win for Lausanne Sport saved them in some ways. I mean, there was a danger that at 8 points they actually wouldn't be able to make the knockouts, but they nearly catapulted their way. Like, let's say Ike Larnaca hadn't scored this goal, Lausanne Sport of Switzerland would have gotten a bye with just 3 wins. And a loss. That's pretty impressive. That's pretty hard to do the way these tables work, but they had a chance. They had a chance. to go through if Ike Larnaca had not scored that goal, right? That was the team they needed to not score that goal. They also could have had a chance if Mainz, for some reason, didn't win against Samsunspor, but Mainz did. They won 2-0. That's a good result for them. This is another match that's involved in the nonsense I'm going to tell you about later, so we'll dive into that when we get to it. Rakov beat Ammonia 1-0. Rakov nearly finished top of the entire table. Apparently, the manager of Rakov has come out and said he would like to take over at Legia Warsaw, because Rakov is a Polish side that is not nearly as big of a club as Legia Warsaw, but he's guided them to such a spectacular performance here. 3 straight wins to end the group stage and one of the 3 undefeated teams, along with Strasbourg, who ended up winning the group, and, of course, our favorites, Ike Larnaca. They did draw half their matches, though. That feels like cheating. Rayo Vallecano beat Drita, but Drita, good news for them, they were already safe. The 8 points was enough points-wise for them to be good, even though they got 0 points in their last 2 matches against AZ and Rayo Vallecano. That's a pretty difficult draw. So we got a club from Kosovo going to the playoff round as well. That is a Kosovan club that has battled its way through to the Conference League playoffs. Congratulations. Vallecano achieved what would probably be the minimum threshold with back-to-back wins to bring it home and finish top 8. That is a team from La Liga playing in this competition, should be doing very well. Shakhtar Donetsk also finished top 8 after bringing it home with a draw against Rijeka. For Rijeka, this draw was good enough to make sure they were very safe in the playoff rounds. The Croatian side not missing out, not underachieving. Shamrock Rovers got the win over Hamrun. Both of these teams were already out, but that's really nice for Shamrock Rovers to pick up a win. Hamrun also had 1 win in this competition as well. They beat Lincoln Red Imps, which makes it even funnier that Lincoln Red Imps has every chance to make it into the knockouts. Lech Poznan beat Sigma Olomouc 2-1 in a battle of teams that somehow fucking lost to a club from Gibraltar. Slovan Bratislava beat BK Häcken. I mean, just the Depression Bowl, absolute Depression Bowl. Sparta Prague beat Aberdeen. I just want to show you, Aberdeen only ended up with 2 points in this whole competition. Not a great look for the Scottish League to have Aberdeen shit out like that. Bright to Bleak was defeated 3-1 by Strasbourg in the final match. Bright to Bleak, if they had won this, actually would have been in the knockouts, but obviously asking them to be able to go on the road against a French side and win. Tough ask for an Icelandic side. And Zrinjski and Rapid Wien played against each other. And this is where we officially enter into the nonsense, right? There's a couple of games that contributed to the nonsense. I'm going to pull them up right now. The first one, Crystal Palace, KUPS. I pointed that one out to you. KUPS, a team out of the Finnish league. The second one, Legia Warsaw, Lincoln Red Imps. Third one, Zrinjski against Rapid Wien. All right, what you need to know here is that Rapid Wien took an early lead, which is hilarious because Rapid Wien is just dog water. They had 1 point coming into this. They had 0 points coming into this match. They were the only team left that had 0 points in the competition. They, trying to get something, they score a goal, they go in front. So Zrinjski is on 6 points, which means if they lose, they are basically out, right? Sigma Olomouc, they lost both their matches to bring it home, so they nearly fumbled the chance to qualify all of a sudden. They were in and out kind of simultaneously. Then there was the Lincoln Red Imps Legia Warsaw match. This was 0-0 till the 21st minute when Legia Warsaw scored. Of course, Legia Warsaw is already out. Lincoln Red Imps has already beaten a team from Poland, somehow. Legia Warsaw is out. They're playing for nothing but pride, a nice paycheck for winning the match or whatever. A nice higher finish in the table for a little more money. They score a goal in the 21st minute. Now, because of weird things that have been happening, witchcraft and wizardry, Lincoln Red Imps is sitting on 7 points in the bag, which is the same amount as Sigma Olomouc, obviously. It's the same amount as Univ Craiova. It's the same amount as Shkindia, right? They're in this category of teams that have a decent chance to make it through if things do not go against them. But there's 2 things that Lincoln Red Imps needs to happen. They need Zrinjski to lose, and they need KUPS to lose. Unfortunately for them, Crystal Palace sucks right now, at least in this competition. And despite taking an early lead at home, KUPS scored 2 goals in 3 minutes to take the lead in England. We now have a team in Finland that needs at least a point to make it to the knockouts that is currently doing this. And this is a nightmare for Crystal Palace, because Crystal Palace is now in a situation where they're not top 8. They need to win. If they win, they're going top 8 on goals for over Ike Larnaca because of the way everything shook out. But they would be going top 8 if they win. They're not winning, right? They are instead losing, at which point there is a red card for KUPS. Crystal Palace then scores 3 minutes later to make it 2-2, and then everything stalls. This result alone knocks out Lincoln Red Imps. They now have no chance, right? Because somehow KUPS is going to manage to get at least a point here, and they've got, a way better goal difference than Lincoln Red Imps does for obvious reasons. Okay. And the first team out is going to be Sigma Olomouc, in fact, because Zrinski scores. In the 93rd minute, they score an equalizer, and they've been down the entire match. The table updates, Zrinski scores. Bosnia and Herzegovina's Zrinski Mostar takes a draw from Rapid Vienna, the worst team in the entire table, in the 93rd minute. Now, this goal bumps Zrinski in, and it knocks out not just Lincoln Red Imps, but Sigma Olomouc. Because remember, Rapid Vienna's not in the conversation here. So Sigma Olomouc is now sitting out with Lincoln Red Imps. They were the 24th team before. And why was that the case? Because Univ Craiova was winning. And this is where the particular heartbreak comes in. Univ Craiova was up 2-0. They were up 2-0 until the 65th minute when Ike Athens scored a goal. Ike Athens was playing for a potential top 8 finish. It's another unfortunate turn for Lausanne Sport that Ike Athens pulled this off. Right, Univ Craiova just needs to not lose. They're up 2-0 for the first hour. You got to be feeling amazing, right? They're not even in the drop conversation because they're winning, even after it's 2-1. And it's 2-1, chat, until the 98th minute. Yeah, I don't even know what's going on. 98th minute, 104th minute. Not only does this knock Univ Craiova out, this somehow brings Czech side Sigma Olomouc into the knockouts. This is club-changing stuff. This is knockout football in Europe. Big money for these clubs. Big stage. Univ Craiova manages to lose. Not only, remember, they lost to Sparta Prague. I told you to remember it. They lost to Sparta Prague late, 89th minute, at home. And then they blow a 2-0 lead at Ike Athens. This was a team, by the way, 2 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss coming into this. Right? If they'd won both of these matches, they would have been in the top 8. They were in contention right around the top of the table. With this situation that they'd put together 7 points pretty quickly. They were in position to make a run in that direction, and they were certainly good enough to do it because if you look at the Romanian league, they're one of the best teams. They've slipped down to 4th, but they're 2 points off the top. This is a competitive league, good amount of money, right? Certainly be able to match most of the level of the Greek league. They blew it. 98th minute, 104th minute. And that result bumps Sigma Olomouc at the death. Sigma Olomouc gets bumped into 24th. Univ Craiova has been knocked out. And Ike Athens, with that goal, jumps into 13th. Or jumps into 3rd. Sorry. With that goal, Ike Athens ends up on 13 points instead of 11. They jump way up. They actually would have been chilling in the 8th spot before that goal. So the 98th minute goal was technically good enough to knock Lausanne Sport out of the top 8 and force them to play the playoff round. The 98th minute goal would have been dramatic enough just for that, right? But it also wouldn't have knocked Univ Craiova out. Zrinski would have been the last team in. Sigma Olomouc would have been the first team out. Lincoln Red Imps obviously had a chance in the final day. They were eliminated because Crystal Palace couldn't win and because freaking... all Lincoln Red Imps still could have made it if Crystal Palace won and if Zrinski blew it. Lincoln Red Imps would still be in. You move this down too. So Univ Craiova is obviously unlucky with the way things happened. If Crystal Palace had won, Univ Craiova still would have been in. Right? If Zrinski had not scored that late equalizer, Univ Craiova would have still been in. So it looked like it was going to be a boring day at first, but the Conference League delivered some nonsense, and the final 24 is set. Strasbourg, Rakov, Ike Athens, Sparta Prague, Vallecano, Shakhtar Donetsk, Mainz, and Ike Larnaca of Cyprus get the bye. They're waiting in the round of 16 for the winners of the seeded side, Lausanne Sport of Switzerland, Crystal Palace, Lech Poznan, Samsunspor, Celje out of Slovenia, AZ, Fiorentina, and Rijeka of Croatia. That's the seeded side. Jagiellonia, and then the unseeded side in the Conference League, always a freaking banger of a time. Poland's Jagiellonia, Cyprus's Ammonia, Armenia's Noah, Drita of Kosovo, KUPS of Finland, Shkindia of Albania, Zrinski of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Sigma Olomouc of the Czech Republic. That is the flip side. I cannot wait for Crystal Palace having to go play in Albania. We're going to have a Premier League away day in Albania in the knockouts. But there is not a team that I see here. The hardest draw, by the way, would be Jagiellonia. They're the most capable team on this list. It's a little unlucky for anybody that has to play them. They've fallen to this point. They got to the quarterfinals of this last year. They can score. And that's like a big, I don't want to say a real club, but, you know, a club that if Crystal Palace is playing there, it feels a little more familiar than playing at Drita or Zrinski, right? There really is no other club down here that should threaten. I'm feeling pretty good if I'm Fiorentina, if I'm AZ. If I'm one of these clubs down here, I'm hoping for Celje or Rijeka. Rijeka has not been amazing in this competition, but I think they're still more dangerous than Celje. Celje has definitely taken a turn for the worse. They won their first 3 matches. They've slowly kind of fallen down. I think any one of these teams would have an opportunity against Celje. They were a huge surprise knockout team last year. They've made it back again. They're a very good team in Europe, but last year they were like 5th in the Slovenian league. I mean, there's no way they actually have that amount of talent. Of course, Lech Poznan, at one point in their life, lost to Lincoln Red Imps, so maybe if you get them, you're feeling like you could be the next Lincoln Red Imps. I don't know. Shout out Conference League. Love my boys.